Dinoia, thanks for being here today. We are about to engage in what I call the 10-minute Mastering Your Future masterpiece. So what we're going to be doing is going through a process of you looking for something. What do you really want to accomplish in your life? Like a goal, similar to a goal setting with a little bit of a unique twist to it. So we're going to go through a whole process of looking, what do you want? How are you going to get it? And we're actually going to identify milestones, timelines, and then actually create what that would look like. And when we're complete with that, you'll actually go back and be able to see step by step how to accomplish exactly what you said you wanted. All right? Everybody, so far so good?
Yeah.
Great. Now, first thing is this. You might say, well, why this over anything else? So the first thing I'll share with you is that it's because this is what I've done for myself in my own life. And I stumbled onto this in a course when I was taking my master's program in counseling at the University of South Florida in Tampa several years ago. And it was an exercise that a professor had us do. And as I went through the exercise, and I did this just in the, like sometimes when you're in classes, you just do it because that's what there is to do. So I did it like that, and when I was done, what I noticed was the things that I said started to happen. So I got interested, and I started doing more study with this, and I started putting it where it was something that was very hands-on, very easy to use, and then starting to share that with people. So that's the process we're going to go through today. Sound fair?
Yeah.
Fabulous. Okay, great. All right, so first thing we're going to do is this, is we're going to look at a process of creating what you want, and we're going to develop it really as a masterpiece. So you have a document in front of you. What we're going to do is go through 3 steps. Step number 1 is this, is to determine what you want. So as I say what you want, I want you to start just to get a sense, what's something you want? Something you really want. Might be new job, new car, money, new relationship. What I've seen is I've seen this work with business. I've seen it work in personal relationships. There's no area that goes unturned in this event. So is there anything that immediately pops in your mind, something that you want?
Increase my income.
Okay, great. So to increase your income. Very good. Okay, perfect. Good. Anybody else? It's probably a great place. Probably everybody likes that part.
Happy, healthy family.
Happy, healthy family. Perfect. Okay, good. Anything you can think of?
Find a passion. Find my passion.
Find your passion.
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's not lost. It's just.
Yeah, just find it again.
Okay, good. Let's find. Okay, good. So it's out there, and you want to find it again, rediscover
Right.
it.
Right.
Beautiful. I got. Okay, perfect. All right. So as you look at that, what you're going to do is then start thinking about, well, to get those things. So Jag, when you say increase your income, there'd have to be some things that would happen that would have you increase your income, right? We're going to come up with 8, but I want you to just think of something right now. What would be one thing that would have to happen that would have you increase your income?
Do more cold calling.
Okay, very good. So one of the things that would have to happen is there'd be some cold calling happening. Okay, very good. Obviously, you'd be closing some deals.
Right.
So,
Yes.
and now, while the two actually relate to each other, at first it's like you don't always tie those strings together, cold calling to close the deal, because there's a lot of things that happen in between. But if you start looking at what are the different things that have to happen, well, 1, there'd be some cold calls. 2, there'd be closing the deals. And we'd actually come up with 8 different things. And I'm going to introduce you to a document, what I call the cluster diagram. And I'll show you how that works, and we'll put everything down so it's all down right in front of you, written out, so that we can go from there. Okay, we'll come back to the cluster diagram in a moment. So, if I said, I'm going to work with Jag just for a second. Everybody going to get a sense? Did you think of one thing for yourself?
One thing that would have to happen?
Yeah, one thing that would have to happen.
Yes.
Okay, good. What's that?
I would have to enroll my husband in the idea of a family.
Okay, very good. So that would be one thing. You'd have your husband say he's on board, right? Okay, all right, very good. Very good. Amy, did you think of one thing that would have to happen?
I'm going to choose something.
Okay, good. So you'd have to go through a process of picking something.
Right,
So
right.
maybe coming up with, I need a list. I need some things
Right,
to
I
pick
think
from.
with the list.
Beautiful. Okay, great. All right, so we're going to work with that and keep going. If I'm going to work with Jag with cold calling. Okay, so Jag, if you looked at cold calling as one of those 8 things, are there things around cold calling that would have to happen just about cold calling? Like, are some things that have to happen to have you make those cold calls?
Yes, I would have to do some research on the properties and a little bit of history on the properties.
Okay,
That would
perfect.
be- And then obviously go from there.
Okay, great. So you'd actually go research the properties. You'd have to get whatever history there is about those properties,
Right.
and then make some determinations on who do you get in touch with.
Right.
Okay, great. So that's pretty clear. Cold calling then has something around that as well. All right, very good. You guys, you can all get a sense of that, like how he would go through that. You could do the same thing with, how do you have that conversation with your husband? That might involve dinner. That might involve knowing his favorite meal, or maybe some other situation. You may take him somewhere where it's something that he really likes. What do you think yourself?
I'm still thinking.
Okay, that's okay. Great. Is the best part about this is there's not a right or wrong way in the thinking process. That's the beauty, because we're going to actually create something. Okay, so that's great. That's masterpieces are created, aren't they? Yeah. So we'll create. So that's okay. Keep thinking. Is that right? Okay, good. And you've already started thinking about your list,
right,
haven't you?
my
You're
list.
already okay. Good. Very good. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now we start getting some ideas of what has to happen. That will leave a piece that's missing. So I want to put the piece that's missing in. So not only do we want to have things happen, but we need them to be in existence, like in time. So what do you think I'd have to be in time? I'd have to have a by when. When are they going to happen? Does that make sense? Okay, great. So have you ever noticed that you said something like, I'm going to lose weight, and I'm going to do it by, we usually do that about January 1st. We all say, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to do it by whatever time it is. So we come up with what we want. We come up with some time frames. Okay, those are the first two things. Those are pretty what most people do. The third part that we're going to incorporate is actually creating that future like it's already happened. So I'm going to come back to that. So there's our three steps. We're going to say what we want, when do we want to have it happen, and then actually creating the future like it already happened. What I want to do now is give you a structure and how to organize that information. Okay? I mean, are you organized?
Am I organized?
Are you highly organized? Highly?
No, I don't think I'm highly organized. But
I'm clearly not. Okay, that's why I actually, I know one of the things for myself. I'm completely not a highly organized person, but I found structures to have myself able to manage what there is for me to do and handle in life. Okay, so we're going to create that with you. If you look on the next page in the handout, it's going to talk about how to use a cluster diagram. So the cluster diagram itself this is just a piece of it. If you see the purple box in the middle, see the large rectangle, it's a purple box, you're going to put in there, what do you want? The cluster, how that works is, there's 4 medium-sized rectangles around that large rectangle. In each of those rectangles, there's what I call an ellipse. Now, my math background, an ellipse is a stretched-out circle. Is probably the PC way to say it, right? So in that red ellipse, you're going to put in, remember we talked about the 8 things, right? So JAG, one of those would be cold calling. And then if you notice, there's 4 smaller rectangles around the ellipse, and so you'd use, what are the 4 things that would have to happen around cold calling? If I go back to JAG with cold calling, it'd be cold calling, there'd be researching the property, there'd be finding out who owns the property, what's the best way to reach them, and you could actually put those around. And so that's where I say it is a cluster, and it's a diagram, because we're actually going to create the diagram. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, great. All right, so that works with that. If you look at the next page, it says right there, here we go. So we're going to take a couple of minutes, and this, Laura, this is perfect, because this is the part to do some more thinking, okay? And have you ever, when you're doing thinking, what are some of the things that get in the way of your thinking? Have you ever noticed, like, you're going to say, well, I want to do some thinking now. What are some of the things that happen when you start thinking?
I get confused.
Okay, great. So you get confused. So if you notice you're getting confused, that's a good message to yourself that you stop thinking and you're doing something else, okay? So you say, oh, man, I'm confused. It's like, well, there's Harley Davidson by. That would confuse me, right? I'm like, whoa. But if you
thinking about other things.
Yeah, so you start thinking about other things. So if you're doing that, you're doing a different kind of thinking than the kind that we're going to do. Is that okay? That's kind of like there's your red flag. Make sense? Okay, great.
Absolutely.
So if you're doing the thinking now, whatever comes to you, this is the time now to just write it down. So one of the things we do when we start thinking, we come up with a particular idea, and then we start coming up with opinions about that idea. We can deal with the opinions later. Now it's just more brainstorming. Just think, whatever you see, you're just going to start writing it down. Okay, really just to let yourself get into that creative place for yourself. Okay, so first thing you're going to do is identify step 1, what do you want, and you're going to write that down right in the place where it says, what do you want? Here we go. And then for what you want, you'll look at, well, what are 8 things that would have to happen to get you what you want? And that's where you go to step 2, and that step 2 is in blue. So I kept everything color-coded so you could see what went where. Oh, there you go. Yep. So you start with what you want, and then 8 things that would have to happen. Mark, you can stop right there, and then I'm going to come back on again. You good?
Paused.